Thank you for joining today's Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community call. Today is June the 13th, and Vesa is on holidays, so I will be your host today along with David. So today's call is the one where, it's largely done by Microsoft speakers. However, at one of the slides you'll see later on, we do encourage you to also do demos. So we're very happy to also have Paolo doing another demo with us here today. The agenda is relatively brief. The real stars of the shows are highlighted there with Pablo, with Lon Lee, with Kishor, and with Marc, again, talking about Syntex. But before we get to that, because we have people that are joining the call sometimes for the first time, we do go through some updates and some news, and we do a group picture if you are willing to get off camera as well, just to share the love and share what we do as a community with all of our smiling faces. If this is your first time here today, there's a lot of ways that we want to ensure that you have great success, with Microsoft 365 and the Power Platform. A lot of that is just basically along different paths that we take in terms of our own learning. I myself am a visual learner, and I also love to do, structured, labs, because that's the way I can do my repetition and make things sticky. And we offer that as well as a ton of different ways based on how you learn yourself. The first way is to go to our aka.ms/community/videos, where you can see a history of all of these calls that we've done in the past, including this one, which will be available within 24 hours. But it's a good way to catch up on everything if you're relatively new to the call, to see all of the history that we've done before. There's playlists, there's individual videos, so you can actually theme the way that you want to structure that. As well, we have LinkedIn groups for discussion and updates. So if you'd like to, engage in a conversation, especially as we have speakers here, we're also on LinkedIn on a particular topic. We have those discussions there. Encourage you to join. Start off. A lot of people are shy. You can tell that some of the MVPs, especially on this call, we're not shy. So reach out to us. We're happy to have that conversation with you. As it goes without saying, a lot of our successes here are collaborative, they're combined. We see that a lot, especially in the open source community with the things that we have on GitHub. So whether it's the PnP stack, whether it's the Office Dev stack, SharePoint, and the Microsoft Graph, which is the team that I'm on, we have a lot of great open source solutions that are there that are built collaboratively between Microsoft and the community, and we thank you for that as well. To ensure that nobody starts off with a blank canvas. I remember, when I was just starting off, the most intimidating thing to do was open a Visual Studio at the time, not code, and have a blank canvas stare at you in the face, no imports, no nothing, and you just say, okay, where do I start? So in order to make sure that quells away, especially if there are people that are new, we have tons of sample galleries that are there, whether it be around SPFx, whether it be a Power Platform, whether it be around SharePoint or even Microsoft Graph. Lots of examples there to make sure that you do not start off with a blank canvas and you have something that you literally can press F5 and see it actually working and extend and build from there. A lot of this, you don't have to really learn these individual sites. You can just go to aka.ms/community/home, and all of these are there prepared for you. As we're doing today, we do have a lot of calls, whether they're weekly calls or monthly calls or bi-weekly calls. The one that you're on today is a weekly call on Tuesdays. This actually is coming up to our last session before our summer break. I think the 27th of June will be the beginning of our summer break, and then we catch back up on the 22nd of August. I'm thinking because the MVP PGI is actually tomorrow, and that's the last one before we actually go on summer break. So in my mind, I'm wondering which one. But, you can pull the invite down for these recurring meetings at aka.ms/community/ms-speakers-call-invite, and the others are there as well. However, rather than, learning these long URLs or long invites, you can just go to aka.ms/community/calls to grab all of them and put them in your calendar as well. Next up is, as I mentioned before, in this particular call, which is largely around Microsoft presenters, we're trying to ensure that we are more inclusive and and sharing all of the good content that we have. So we are requesting people to present, such as Paolo is going to be doing here today. We encourage everyone, with a solution to share that we can all learn from to do so. And the link is easy for that. Is aka.ms/community/request/demo in order to request, ability to speak. And if you're going to be doing a demo, obviously you need to have a platform in order to do that demo on. And whether it's the platform to do a demo or your own skilling and learning, We want to make sure that it is available to you. And in order to do that, and I myself have these tenants as well. In fact, I'll be using one of these tenants for my demo tomorrow. So you can get a free M365 E5 developer tenant and other assets, basically all of the tooling that you need for SharePoint or for Teams, so that you're not, you don't have to script things in order to have things available for you. These things are already there in terms of Canary, so you have a bunch of assets that's already there for you. So just register to get that free tenancy at aka.ms/M365/dev program, and as long as you continue to use this this platform for demo purposes, it'll auto renew for you. So go ahead and take advantage of that. And keeping in the theme of ensuring that you don't have a blank canvas to start, there's lots of learning in terms of that's available to you through our Microsoft/dev/learn site. 73 Learn modules already available, as you can see here, which are all free to use, free to consume. So go here as well and step through those labs, become skilled yourself, and learn. We also have a ton of different shows, that you can consume asynchronously. Whether it's the Microsoft 365 PnP weekly podcast with Vesta and Waldeck, the Power Platform connections with David and Hugo, who I see here in the call. I think I saw Hugo in the call here somewhere. And we also have with Caruana and with Heather, the Mondays at Microsoft on LinkedIn, as well as my manager, Jeremy Thake, and also with Paul Schaefline or Aicha Bass. They also host an M365 developer podcast as well. So lots of different flavors, lots of different avenues that are available for you to catch up with things as you go on your daily, weekly, or whatever frequency walks that you do. Any podcast platform that you use, they should be available for you as well. We are up to 60. I remember when I started off co-hosting with Vesta, this was like around 1490 something. And in that time, which is almost coming up to 3 years, I've been at Microsoft now, we have over 1,600 plus samples, in large part because of the community contributions and for people, like you on the call that put these samples inside these galleries. So we have quite a bit here for you to consume. It keeps growing. I encourage you to please keep doing it as well too. You'll be surprised. I myself come here to look for stuff that's brand new because I don't write production code anymore, and I like to see what all of the new, the cool things kids are doing today. So I sometimes come here and just pull stuff down just to practice and see what people are doing as well. But I'm going to flip it to David to talk a little bit about the Sharing is Caring initiative that we have. David.
Absolutely. Thank you, my man. And yes, Sharing is Caring is a program for those that are unaware that is here to help you with hands-on guidance. What does that mean? It means that we are going to get together in a live Teams call and work together on a variety of these topics. We have sessions that are laid out. We are trying to scale. As you can see, we are looking for volunteers that would like to help. If you would like to help, please go to that form, aka.ms/sharingiscaring/volunteer. We are looking to scale so that we can be more globally friendly, as our community is a global community. These are sessions that are safe space. That means they are not recorded, but they are wonderful opportunities to collaborate and learn together. We know that the scheduling has been a little sparse, but we are working on improving that. So if you would like to help improve that, please don't hesitate to reach out. Any questions, reach out to myself or Hugo, but definitely fill out that form and we will have more scheduled soon. Thank you. Fabian, back to you.
Thank you, David. Thank you. So moving on in terms of some of the community activities, again, this is a global community, as David mentioned before, and we have global events. I think prior to the call, I was, for those who have joined since then, I was actually saying that literally after this call, I'm going to be packing up my bags and heading to DC as I'm speaking at this first event, basically on between June 2nd and the 16th at EduCon in DC. However, there are two other events that are queued up, which is basically the one in Seattle in August and the one in October, November timeframe in Chicago. So, these are conferences that are heavily around M365 and the Power Platform. So, looking forward to seeing you there. Also in Dublin in next week, actually, isn't it? Right. We also have the European Power Platform Conference. I know a few of us on this call are going to be there. I'll be there as well, but not in an official speaking capacity. If you are there, please let's get together, share a pint or something. Head over to the Guinness Factory if you have time as well too. But also soak up some learning and some knowledge around the Microsoft 365 and the Power Platform. There are a few others that are here. This will be in the video as well, and we can also link to them. You can see http://communityday/org to grab a couple of these events that are there that are also worldwide. What's going on now? Is Gary here? I don't know if Gary's anything to say or Aicha, but I'll do it unless I hear them chime in. We actually have between June 1st it started and the 15th, so basically 2 more days, the Microsoft Teams Global Hack, and where you can actually hack together along with some of the help of I know Steb was doing some, I know Waldek was doing some, I know Aicha is doing some, I know Bob German is doing some. Hack together with some of our dev advocates and some of our PMs around Microsoft Teams that give you a chance to win some prizes as well. So looking forward to seeing, and I do know that once this is done, more often than not, we actually have the winners actually present demos of their solutions here as well too. So looking forward to seeing what people come up with. In terms of the news, it's coming to summer here, so the news somewhat gets a little bit sparse. So we do have the Hack Together news, which I just mentioned before, so I won't belabor that. But Bob German actually has something out around App Camp and some of the labs that are there. And in terms of the other platforms we have, everything is around building solutions for Microsoft Teams now that you see a ton of that content coming out. We have new solutions and opportunities for ISVs that are there as well. And we also have some information around hybrid meetings and Teams. So a lot of Teams-focused activities on the news on the Microsoft front here today, from what I gleaned. So what I'm going to do is pause this right now and encourage all of you who would like to participate in the hand waving and view. Where's that? It's view and then together mode. And I'm going to do something different. Best always does something. I'm going to try and do something different here today. Make mine a little bit different. If I can get it to work. There we go. It didn't. Actually, it didn't select what I wanted to select. I got gypped. All right. So we have 50 people. We're not ready to do some of the hand waving as yet, but let's go ahead and get some hand waving going. Let me move this over here to clip it away out of this region. All right. And let's go ahead and start doing some hand waving while I go ahead and do some record. 3, 2, 1, and a hand waving, 1, 100, 2, 100, 3, 100, 4, 100, 5, 100. Thank you very much for playing along, everyone. Let me go ahead and stop the recording. And thank you very much for participating. Move this over here. And so now that we've done that, let me go ahead and spin back up my deck. And what we're going to do now is actually move into the stars of the show. We're going to start off with Paolo, who's going to talk to us about exposing Microsoft Teams apps in Microsoft Viva with SPFx cards. Paolo, I turn it over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Fabian, and welcome everyone to this demo. Here, we're going to talk about how we can leverage Microsoft Viva Connections adaptive card extensions to create end-to-end solutions integrated with Microsoft Teams. So just a few words about myself. I'm Paolo, and I'm a solution architect working in the area of Microsoft 365. As you can imagine, you can read everything else on this slide, and I don't want to stay here too long. So I will just move to the real content. And first of all, let me try to briefly set the context. This is a demo which is part of a big demo that you can find also on the samples gallery that Fabian was talking about. And the demo covers how you can use and how you can create, first of all, with SharePoint Framework, a solution to extend Microsoft Teams as well as Viva Connections, and with a backend ecosystem based on the main workloads of Microsoft 365. We have been playing with this demo solution already in some of the previous community calls, and we will do again in the future. Today, I want to focus on the Viva Connection dashboard experience. Here you can see a short video that I recorded from my mobile phone just to easily being able to share with you the UI of Viva Connection dashboard on a mobile device. Here you can see I'm scrolling a list of adaptive cards in my dashboard, and I can access any of them with advanced functionalities, like, for example, clicking on the All Products button and having access to the list, detailed list of the products. And as you can see, beside every single product, there is a little arrow that you can press to dig into the product, and so on and so forth. Whenever you do that, you use SharePoint Framework because SharePoint Framework is nowadays the framework for extending Viva Connection dashboard, and you create ACEs, so the adaptive card extensions. Actually, whenever you want to extend the Viva Connection dashboard, you can do that either using a fully customized approach, so the so-called pro-code approach, but you can also use the no-code one, which relies on just configuring on the dashboard a set of cards provided by Microsoft, so the so-called first-party cards. But you can also use a card designer ACE provided still by Microsoft, which allows you to use a low-code approach. So just by configuring some settings and eventually providing a bunch of JSON, you can design your own custom card without the need to dig into developing a real solution with SharePoint Framework. It is up to you and up to what you want to do with your solution. No matter what, when you create and when you configure the Viva Connection dashboard, you put on the dashboard a set of cards which can be targeted using the target audiences, and eventually you can use custom logic if those are pro-code developed solutions. And whenever you do that, you have the card views and the quick views. What you see right now on the screen, right now in this moment, the retail inventory is called quick view because it is a popping up screen which allows you to provide an advanced UI in your cards, while all of these rectangles or squares that you see are called card views and are the main entry point of every single adaptive card extension. So from a technological scenario, this demo, the one that I'm going to show you, relies on a SharePoint Framework adaptive card extension, which does use a card view to show the carousel of products that we have in an hypothetical retail company, fashion retail company, and a quick view to render a detailed list of products in the fashion retail company, and with the capability to click on one of those items to dig into the item through a Teams-based application still based on SharePoint Framework. And we have a backend built with an Azure function that you can find in the repository where also this solution is available. So just to give an idea and move into the actual demo, this is the solution on the samples gallery, and later at the end of this demo, I will share with you a direct link and a QR code to download it. So you don't need to write down the URL right now. And here in the GitHub repository, you will find both the source code of the front end with SharePoint Framework as well as of the back end with .NET Azure functions. Then when you use it from an end user point of view, now I'm in the desktop version of the Viva Connection dashboard. You can click on the All Products button and you get access to this item, which is called Quick View, while the other one, this rectangle here, is called Card View, as I told you. When you click on the Quick View button right here, you are brought to the Teams app that we have in this solution. That's why I told you that's an end-to-end solution, because we have components inside Teams, we have components inside Viva, we have a backend on Azure, and many more items will come and will be shared in the future about this demo. Here, as you can see, I simply clicked on a product, and let's say I want to get this pink cotton t-shirt. If I click on it, I will be brought to a Teams app directly with a deep link, which will bring me to the detailed information about the selected product. So now let me explain you how we created this solution and how you can easily do the same in your own custom developed solutions. First of all, I created an adaptive card extension. In order to do that, we need to run the Yeoman generator for SharePoint Framework, so yo@microsoft/SharePoint. You provide whatever name you like for your solution, and you choose to create an adaptive card extension. When you do that, you then need to choose what kind of first UI you want to have for the card view, for the first card view that will be rendering the UI of your adaptive card. In fact, whenever you create an ACE or an adaptive card extension, you can have as many card views and as many quick views as you like, but for sure you will have at least one card view, which will be the one you will be able to see in the dashboard the very first time you will add your adaptive card extensions to the dashboard. So this question right here is to let you choose how the first card view will look like. And it can be a basic card just with the basic text, can be a card with an image like the one we see right here. This one is a card with an image. In fact, we have an image which is changing and we have some text on the left side, plus additional custom buttons. You can have up to 2 buttons in the card rendering, or you can choose to have a primary text template, which will simply allow you to have a primary text and a descriptive text inside a text-based rendered adaptive card extension. Doesn't really matter what I'm going to choose right now, because this is just to explain you where you start from. But now, once you have done that and you choose one option, like for example, the image card, you provide a name. Hello world is definitely fine because I'm not going to use it. The scaffolding tool will generate for you a bunch of code, and then you will find something like the following solution that is the real one I'm going to share with you. I hope the font size is good enough. So here we have the automatically scaffolded code for my inventory adaptive card extension that I created in this solution. And whenever you create an ACE, you get a class which extends the base adaptive card extensions provided by the basic infrastructure of SharePoint framework. And by inheriting from this one in the onInit method of this extension, you can configure all the card views and quick views that you want to have in the UI of your solution. As I told you, you can have as many cards as you like and as many quick views as you like. For all of them, you need to register them in the onInit method. In this sample, I just have one card view and one quick view, so I register those 2 objects. And I simply then need to do proper setting up of my solution. Here, for example, we work using a service, actually a couple of service classes, one to manage the settings of the ACE and one to manage the access to the actual data, which is exposed through a REST API in the backend. So the service that I'm going to use to access data is nothing more than a support service class, which will make all of the REST requests targeting the backend REST API. I'm using right here to give you a proper example of how you should do things the right way. I'm using the service scope pattern provided by SharePoint Framework. So through the context of SharePoint Framework, rather than creating an instance of a class, I use the service scope to get a new instance of my service so that I will be able inside the service to get access to all of the context information that I have also in the SharePoint Framework custom solutions. And once I've done that, I simply trigger an asynchronous reload of my data through the service so that I can initially do a first rendering of my card, and then in background, I can do the actual download of data and render my data in the UI of the card view. The card view itself is really simple. Any card view is a class which extends one of the 3 templates that we have out of the box in SharePoint Framework. Can be the base image card, can be the one based on text, or the basic one. So the 3 that we saw previously. Now, this one is based on the base image card view. So whenever we want to implement this kind of card, we simply need to provide 3 information: the primary text, the URL of the image we want to render, and a title for our card. These 3 information will be used by the infrastructure of SharePoint Framework and of the ACES to render the actual UI of the card. Plus, in my card, sorry, not here, but here, we have the buttons. So how do we render the buttons? We have a card buttons method that we can expose, which can return just 1 button or 2 buttons or no buttons, up to you. So you can return 1, 2, or 0 buttons. And inside the logic of this method, you can return an array of 0, 1, or 2 items, which will simply say what every single button will do. In my scenario, my button will simply be of type quick view, meaning that it will activate a quick view and will render a quick view which will be identified by ID. This ID is precisely the ID that we registered in the onInit method of my card, and which is defined as a static content here in my, as a constant here in my card definition. So let's have a look at the quick view. The quick view is a little bit more complex, despite the name quick view, because it is quick when rendering, but not necessarily when you develop it. But you need to know the adaptive card JSON syntax in order to do that. In fact, we still have a class which implements the actual base logic of the quick view, but then we inherit from a type which will rely on property and state of our adaptive card extension. So notice that here in the definition of the adaptive card extension, we have an interface for the properties and an interface for the state, almost like what happens with React, even if it is not exactly the same story. And then the same properties and states are available in the card view, as well as in the quick view. But in the quick view, we also have the definition of an additional interface, which will be the data description interface. Through this interface, we declare what kind of data we want to provide for data binding inside our quick view. We then have a getData method, which we can use to provide actual content for the object, which will implement the data interface. And in the template folder, we have a JSON file, which will define the actual rendering of our quick view. In this file, we use the syntax of the adaptive cards, which you should learn about if you want to develop this kind of solutions. And here, for example, I define a body with an initial text, which will be the title property of my data source object, and then with a table, which has been released in version 1.5 of this schema. And we define a table which is made of columns and rows. And all of the rows will be data bounded to the product array property that we have in the data source object, where we have a product array of retail product. Every retail product is made of code, description, and so on and so forth. And as such, in the JSON, we simply rely on the picture, on the product code, using this syntax. So $ curly bracket and the name of the property that we want to bind to our interface. So basically, we use this approach. One interesting thing is the deep link, which is the last thing I want to cover. In the data source object that I'm providing to the JSON, I also provide a deep link ID and app URL. These two properties simply rely on the URL of my Teams app inside Microsoft Teams. The app ID is a unique ID which identifies my application, the one in which I am. And then I simply provide inside the JSON the following behavior. So when you are in the column where, sorry, right here, when you are in the column, in the cell where you have the rendering of the little arrow to bring the user to the detail panel, we say that by clicking on that image, we want to have a select action, which will open a URL with a specific tooltip and title. And the URL will be the URL of the app in Microsoft Teams, so the input argument that we provide, followed by a set of context information, which will include the product code that we want to render and the unique ID of the deep link that we are rendering right now in the UI. So at the very end, when I click on this little arrow, I'm targeting the user to the app, and I'm providing in the query string the ID of the product that I want to render. So quite simple, okay? And now hopefully it will load the data. Hopefully yes, or hopefully not, we'll see, but not fundamental right now. So that's the story. You can get data from an external data source. You can do data binding inside the quick views simply by defining a custom data source object and providing, for example, an array of items that you can use in the JSON. And you can eventually also use the open URL action to bring the user from the Viva Connection dashboard to a Teams application or to whatever else you want to bring the user to. That said, let me switch briefly back to the presentation. Here you can find a QR code to access the source code of the demo solution that I showed you. And just below, you can find the initial entry point if you want to learn more about how to create adaptive card extensions with SharePoint Framework. And that said, I think that's all for me. Thank you, and back to you, Fabian.
Thank you very much, Paolo. I'm just looking through the comments, a lot of more raves and reviews and positive feedback on the range of the demo and the things that you're doing. I think I saw one question with regards to scale from David, but we can probably handle that in chat.
Well, I will manage the chat, so no worries. I will give an eye to all of the questions in the chat and try to give an answer. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Great demo as usual. Lots of range. I'm always fascinated when I see this stuff. Next up, I believe we have Lan Lee and Kishor to talk to us about introduction to Power Automate Copilot. Kishor, I think you're on the line. You want to go ahead and start sharing screen?
Hi, folks. It's a privilege to be sitting among everyone here with such a big audience. I'm super excited to be presenting the Power Automate Copilot and a few things that I wanted to discuss here. So, hi, folks. So I'm Kishor. I am the PM in Power Automate. I'm a PM in Power Automate. I work specifically in the maker experiences. So when you are actually building your flow, so that's the maker experience I'm talking about. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Natalie, who is also working really close by my team also. And today, this next 10 to 15 minutes discussion is going to be around Power Automate Copilot. We are excited to share the news that we released Power Automate Copilot at Build. So that was May 23. So it's been about 2 to 3 weeks. And we've been getting a lot of positive attention, some negative feedbacks around the experience that we're constantly trying to iterate and do better. So this call, we just wanted to share a few things. What does it mean to have a Copilot in Power Automate? Just sharing some things around like potential improvements to Copilot and what feedback we've been learning, and also just get a feel from this audience on what would you like to see, right? Like just like you are an extension of the product team, and we want to work closely in shaping the future of Power Automate Copilot. So would really appreciate the guidance and the feedback here if you've had a chance to use it. If you have not had a chance to do so, I'll also share you instructions on how you'll be able to do so. And also, please feel free to be engaged on the chat as well. Natalie's the acting moderator for this session, so she's going to be monitoring and just replying to those chat messages. Like if there are things that we need to follow up on, we will definitely follow up on that as well. So yes, we can go ahead and get started. So Power Automate at Copilot at Build, right? Like I put a small screenshot to the right of the screen here that just tells you what experience I am referring to. So this experience, this Copilot pane that you see right by the Power Automate Cloudflow's designer is this M365, this Power Platform-wide, a consistent UX in terms of a Copilot pane that is serving the product, right? Like you have Copilot in Power Apps, PVA, you also have it in PowerPoint, Teams, like the concept and the UX, like we try to stay aligned with the platform and with the company-wide guidance. So basically the idea here is you go to Power Automate to create automation to streamline, to automate your boring, repetitive tasks. So think about all the hours that you've spent copying files from SharePoint to OneDrive, syncing files from Dataverse to Excel. There's some workflow that you have that starts from Teams when somebody posts a message, and then there's this set of events that you always follow through, and there's no changes. What about you could automate it seamlessly, right? That's where the power of Power Automate comes from. But also we take it a step further with Power Automate Copilot, where essentially you create these automations right the same way as you interact with ChatGPT, right? So in a conversational way, you express what you want, you express your intent of creating this automation, and Power Automate Copilot builds that automation for you. So that is the overarching concept of Power Automate Copilot. It's available in the US preview environment as of May 2023. We're aggressively looking to roll out in more regions as I'm speaking in the meantime. Together with Power Automate Copilot, we also introduced a new Cloudflows designer as well. So this is the first designer refresh that the product has gotten since the first time we actually released the product. So this is pretty fantastic. We want you to use and get the value out of both the designer and the Copilot. And we're really excited and we're curious to hear your feedback as well. So again, to reiterate, the Copilot builds flows from natural language, right? It builds automation from your natural language. It can be as simple as when this happens, do that, right? And it actually understands what you're trying to automate and it puts up a flow for you. So on the right, you see, I said, when someone sends me an email mentioning me, again, like that's important, send me a Teams message because I do get a ping in Teams. And that way, it's easy for me to stay on top of these mentions. And Power Copilot just built a flow for you within a few seconds, and without you having to set up, without you having to build it from scratch. So it actually helps build flows. It also helps edit flows within the designer, right? So you can tell, oh, I actually don't want to get notified through Teams. I actually want to get notified in my mobile app, in my mobile Power Automate app. And you can just ask that in the Copilot pane, and it understands that intent and then changes that action in the flow for you. So not just building flows, but also the value is within the designer, it helps you edit the flow. We are supporting 180 connectors, more to follow, 100%. We want to increase, we want to support more connectors as well. There is limited parameterization support in the flow at this time, in the Copilot at this time. So that just means, so in terms of parameterization, I'm talking about the static text that you put in the action fields, the dynamic content, the drop-down values that you have, the expressions that you put. So we have limited parameterization, but again, we're aggressively looking to expand more on it, right? Because the work just does not stop. When you just create a flow, we have to set the flow correctly, right? So we have to set the connections properly. We have to set the parameters correctly so that for someone who's new to Power Automate, or for someone who just wants to save time creating an automation, that the process is as seamless as possible. On to the next slide. I also want to show you a quick live demo of what I'm talking about. So I'm in make.preview.powerautomate.com. Quick time check. How much time do I have?
You are running good to go.
Okay.
We have like around maybe 3 to 4 minutes left.
Perfect. So what I want to do is I'm on the Power Automate homepage right now, and you see that the homepage is powered by Copilot right there, right? So I have all these different options that I can go through in Power Automate, but homepage UX, you see that Copilot has been integrated into the homepage. There are a few different entry points for the Copilot, but I just wanted to go through this hero scenario that everyone's going to be using mostly. So in the Copilot, what I want to do is I want to send a congratulations email to new hires stored in a SharePoint list, right? So I work for a company. I want to make the new hires feel welcomed, and I want to send a congratulations email. And one thing I want to also do here is I don't want to send them right away, right? Like I want to actually send it on a particular day. Whether that's a Monday or a Friday, I can choose a day. So one thing that I can do is I can quickly iterate over the prompt that I just put. So as you can see, Copilot actually built a flow for me, right? So this means the flow starts when an item is created in SharePoint, and the flow will do what the flow will do is it will actually send an email. And I can basically monitor and I can check who this email is being sent to. So one thing I want to do is I only want to send these emails on Monday. So as you saw, the flow got updated real time. Now the trigger had changed to recurrence, right? Because we want to trigger the flow on a recurrence basis. We only want to trigger the flow on Monday. So that is why the flow understood that intent, changed the flow for me. It's getting the items from SharePoint. It's looping over each of the items. It's checking for a condition, and it's actually sending an email, right? Like I might not need the condition, but it's actually I might not need the condition, but I might as well, right? Like I want to make sure if like, is there a column in SharePoint that says, has the email been sent? In that case, I would need a condition. But again, this might not be exactly what I'm looking for, but I can definitely go to the next step, remove and just like iterate over the flow that Copilot built for me. And again, like as we keep making the model improvements, as we keep making the Copilot improvements, these slight nuances are going to be improved as well. So on the next step, I just see the green checks. I'm ready to go. I want to create my flow. And voila, right? Like I see that Copilot has actually built a flow, like a ready to go flow for me. It tells me it's connected to SharePoint. Like I'm all ready to go. I can check for these fields or these actions. Like, is this okay, right? Like what is this flow doing? So I can even ask in the Copilot pane, explain what this flow is doing, or explain the flow, right? And let's see what Copilot returns. This flow is triggered every Monday using a recurrence trigger. It then retrieves items from a SharePoint list and loops through each item. If a condition is met, it sends an email using the Office 365 connector. So that sounds good enough for me. Now, one thing I want to do is I don't want the condition, right? Like I don't want to check the condition. I've created a system where as soon as the new hires email is in the SharePoint list, I can send an email. So I don't need to check if I've already sent an email to them. So it's just a slight nuance there. If I might need the condition, in which case I would just try to set up this condition, but I don't need it. Let's see if Copilot actually says, does what I tell it to. So I said, delete the condition action. There you go. So it's actually removed that condition for me. So the flow looks simple, right? Like every Monday, it's getting items from SharePoint. I obviously need to choose what site address, what list I'm referring to. Then it's actually sending an email to people with a subject and a body. One cool thing I want to also tell here is on send email body, write a light-hearted tone welcome message to new hires in Contoso company. Right, so let me see if actually, so it's being powered by GPT in the backend. So hopefully GPT is able to write an email body in a lighthearted tone, welcoming people to Contoso. And there you go. It says, hello, new hires. We're thrilled to have you join our team. So I did not have to write anything here, right? So in the next iterations, I don't even have to write this follow-up prompt. Hopefully, Copilot understands that I'm writing a congratulations email, and it just puts the email body automatically. So yeah, it's just the process of improving the experience that we have. And yeah, so that is where I want to take a pause. I just showed you an end-to-end experience of how you express your intent of an automation in the Power Automate Copilot to create a flow, to create an automation for you. And again, like all I need to do is I need to say my flow. There are a few missing parameters, like I need to just put the site address, list address, and the automation is all ready to go. Coming back to the slide, we're excited to share that the new designer is open source. So the designer surface that you're seeing here, except the Copilot. So we're not taking contributions for the Copilot at this moment, but the designer itself is open source. And as you saw, like this is an exciting point in time where the product team is actually taking contributions from the customers on any changes, right? Like obviously, like we keep trying improving the product, the designer experiences, but time is of the essence. The capacity is always limited. But if there are some things that the product team just might not have been getting to, it's an awesome opportunity to work with the product team in contributing to the designer repo. The code lives in GitHub, and if you're interested in contributing to the new designer, please drop your email on the chat, or just please feel free to ping me or Natalie, and we can get that ball rolling. So this is a fantastic opportunity, and we can talk about what features or what updates that we that makes the most sense to work with, right? So it's a collaborative approach. Having said that, I want to now focus more on the feedback. I know some of you might be familiar, some of you might have already used Copilot. Some of you might be familiar with Power Automate, but have not used Copilot, and some of you might just never heard of Power Automate, right? Like whatever cohort you are in, how can we improve Copilot? Like this is a feedback session that I want to have really quickly from the group here. There are a few avenues we are thinking to take Copilot. Again, like this is not concrete. These are just a list of items that we that have been brought up so far. Multi-turn, right? Like can Copilot be more proactive? Can it help clarify questions? Can it like you saw that there were missing parameters? Copilot like really did not care about those missing parameters. Can it be more proactive? Can it help me fill those parameters and save my automation? Do we need to support more connectors? Do we need to support parameterization? There is also the ask for can Copilot generate an expression for me? Can it help fix errors, right? Like that's a big bucket. Like I keep running into errors while building flows. Can it help fix errors? Yeah, please, if you have any feedback around Copilot, please put it on the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Feel free to directly ping us as well if you have questions around how to access or how do I provide feedback. But yeah, thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, we're excited for this new journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Kishor. Fantastic stuff. You know, not enough justice with the time that we have here allotted. Please let's take the conversation to chat, and you know, we'll follow up there. Marc, as best as you can with the minutes that you have left. I will keep mine very, very short. So go right up to the limit.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Marc Windle. I'm a product manager at Microsoft, and I'm working within Syntex Repository Services. Today, I'm going to give you the third installment on the introductory series of Syntex Repository Services, and we're going to talk a little bit about how Syntex Repository Services powers Microsoft Loop. Quick recap, though, in case you missed the prior two sessions, Syntex Repository Services is a faster way for developers to build and manage full-featured file and document-centric applications. It is in private preview now. We announced it at Build. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about it, you can go to aka.ms/syntex/repository build 23. At a high level, if you look at that diagram there, it is a platform as a service that sits in the middle and allows you to connect your custom applications to the Microsoft Cloud. And we're also using Syntex Repository Services to build our own first-party experiences like Designer and Loop. And I'm going to show you a little bit about how Loop works with it today. If you haven't heard of Microsoft Loop yet, it's a transformative co-creation experience that brings together teams, content, tasks across your tools and devices. It went into public preview back in this past March. If you'd like to learn more about that, go to microsoft.com/microsoft-loop. But we're going to get hands-on with it with some of the demos that I've got. Here is getting into the architecture of how Microsoft Loop and Syntex Repository Services work together. So if we're going to go right to left, if you look at the screen of the UX of the Microsoft Loop web application on the right-hand side, what we're looking at is the workspace view. And this is the getting started workspace that gets stamped out for new users. And actually what happens under the hood is that when a workspace is created within Microsoft Loop, it creates a Syntex Repository Services container. Last week on this call, I showed you the API calls that you can use through Microsoft Graph to create containers and manage permissions of it. Loop is doing exactly the same thing. And then also on the right side in that blue box there, it lists the pages that are within this workspace. And again, those pages are actually just files within that container associated with a workspace. And repository services permissioning features are what are used via Loop to secure access and provide sharing. I'm going to show you a quick demo of all of that working together. But first, a quick plug for our private preview again. If you've learned about repository services over the past few weeks and you feel like it might be a good fit for an application that you're building within your organization, you can go to aka.ms/repository preview to sign up for our private preview. But now what I'm going to do is open up a browser window and visit the Loop web app at loop.microsoft.com. So I'm signed in right now as Megan Bowen, and this is the default workspaces view. So here we can see I've got two workspaces, one called Projects and one called Getting Started that we were looking at earlier. Again, each workspace here is a container within Syntex repository services. So what I'm going to do is create a new workspace. I'll just call it Demo. Create that. So what this did is it made a call to the repository services APIs to create a new repository services storage container. And it also created this first untitled page here. Let's give that a title. I'll do that. So I have my first page here. And that, again, is a file within the container associated with this workspace here. Now, the file itself is a loop file, but it's actually using the Microsoft Fluid Framework. And if you haven't come across that, the Fluid Framework is a collection of client libraries used that can distribute and synchronize shared state. These libraries allow multiple clients to simultaneously create and operate on shared data structures as if they're a local object. So simply put, it makes building real-time multiplayer apps fairly easy. And when you build a Fluid-based app on top of Syntex repository services, it works directly on your storage container. So you get all of the benefits like security, compliance, data residency, and more that Syntex repository services has to offer. So I'm going to start editing this page here. What I can do is do this / to insert a component, and I'm going to put a checklist here. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, just make a few items in here. Now, right now, I am working on this page by myself, but what I can do is click on Workspace Member here, and I'm going to invite another person from my organization to collaborate with me within this workspace and on the pages within it. So I just sent an invite to Alan DeYoung, and Alan's going to receive an email letting him know that he's had this workspace shared with him. And you can see Alan has clicked on here, and he's got this file open, and we can now collaborate together here within the Loop application using the Fluid Framework. And again, this all works with Syntex repository services right out of the box too. Okay, so that's pretty cool. We can collaborate on pages, and the Loop app is awesome and how it's built on Syntex repository services. What I want to do now is switch over to a new tab. Here I went to office.com, and you can see here that my first page has loaded up there. So this new page shows up, and behind the scenes what's happening is the page is getting indexed and the activity signals are getting generated and fed into the hopper of our intelligent system. And it's showing recent and recommended files in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So if you're building your own Syntex repository services application, whether it's using Fluid or not, you can opt into or out of having your app's content show up in these experiences in Office.com and others. And again, all of these data and signals are being fed also into our security and compliance systems. So an M365 administrator can go to the Microsoft Purview portal and take advantage of the security and compliance features they've come to expect. So your custom Syntex repository services app can provide these capabilities to your app's customers too. So that's it for the demo. There's two key things that I want you to leave here with. Number one, Syntex repository service is built for Microsoft 365 scale. We as a company are using it for our Microsoft Loop, Designer, and other first-party experiences. And all of the key features that I showed you from the Loop app will be available to your custom Syntex repository services app too, like container management, using permissions to control access to files and sharing, real-time collaborative app experiences with the Fluid Framework, activity and signal-based experiences like recent and recommended can show up in other M365 experiences for your app's users, and security and compliance capabilities like e-discovery, audit, and more for your app's customers. So that's it for me. Looks like I went ahead of time, so that's good. Thank you very much for your time today. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them on the chat, and I'll stick around a little bit to help answer those.
Yeah, the chat is lively, and it's more people saying that they love what you're doing, and you should keep up the good work there. And yeah, I'm always fascinated. A couple questions with regards to scale and also using and a couple of troubleshooting stuff, which I answered, but all good stuff. Let me see where we're at now. We're at 3 minutes to go. Let me just spin mine back up. So first, I want to thank all of the presenters here today. This is a fascinating topic. You know, I love what I'm seeing in terms of Syntex repository services. Pretty stoked about what I saw in Copilot, and Paolo's demo always exists. Coming for the follow-up talk on the 20th of June, we have Lon Lee and Kishor again, which go into a deeper dive into the science behind Power Automate and Copilot. So don't miss that out. And my fellow, past colleague on this team, but now product owner for Microsoft Graph Toolkit, MGT, Sebastian Levert will be speaking about the introduction to Microsoft Graph Toolkit version 3. Something that I've seen, and this is totally fascinating. I've had a chance to see some of this preview stuff at at MVP Summit this year, and also talking to Sebastian about this. So 2 great topics for next week. So again, the 20th of June at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern. But with that being said, we love to hear any feedback that you have about the conversations that you've heard here today. Please use the link aka.ms/community/call/feedback to do that. The recording will be available within 24 hours of today. If you have not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so at aka.ms/community/videos. And we look forward to seeing you then. For now, thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time for the call today. Thank you so much for the speakers, and have a great day. If you're in the DC area, come see me later on or tomorrow. Bye.